Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the 435 podcast. I'm your host, Robert McFarland. Over the next several episodes, guys, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the 2025 municipal elections. Mayors and city council members from all over Southern Utah are going to be seeking your vote in helping shape the future of our cities. So this is the place that you're going to be able to get one-on-one conversations with all the candidates to help you make the best decision for you come election season. So please make sure you like and subscribe, share it with other voters throughout Washington County, and make sure they have the information they need to make the decisions that are going to be best for us in the county. We hope you enjoy this episode and this series of episodes, guys. We'll see you out there.
From the Blue Form Media Studios, this is the 435 podcast, the pulse of Southern Utah.
Mayor Randall, Mayor of St. George, up for re-election. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. You did some homemaker stuff yesterday.
Homemaker
Stuff. Laundry.
Domestic duties. Yeah.
Domestic
laundry,
duties.
wash sheets, pulled weeds, all that kind of stuff.
There was one caveat when I married my wife. The only thing I'll do the dishes, I'll clean the toilets, I'll do any of the domestic duties except laundry. I was like, can you just do my laundry? I just hate laundry.
If you just had a folder, I don't mind putting it in the washing machine and the dryer.
Yeah.
It's having to fold it afterwards.
It's getting the folding
and putting
out.
it away.
Yeah.
That
and
makes
the babysitting of it.
Yeah. But has to be done.
That was it. It has to be done. Somebody's got to do it. My wife does a great job at it.
Well, good for her.
She does a great job. And I'll cook and I'll clean and I'll do all the other stuff.
See, yeah.
Just
that's
not
a good
laundry.
trade-off.
That's a good trade-off. I thought so.
Yeah.
I thought so.
Good job.
So you're running for re-election again.
I am.
You were appointed the first time around. Remind me.
I was.
You were on city council?
So John Pike got appointed to the governor's office over the insurance division.
Mm-hmm.
And so John and I were on the same cycle, actually. So when he was up for re-election, I was up for re-election as well. So I applied for that position. And so I was appointed in January of 2021, but then I had to run.
Almost like right after.
Right after.
Yeah.
So the primary was in August of 2021. The general was in November of 2021.
And then remind me, were you on planning commission before that?
I was not. I was never on the planning commission.
What made you get into the local politics?
Crazy story. So we owned Dixie Ambulance.
Okay.
We had bought Dixie Ambulance in 1999.
Okay, yeah.
And then Gold Cross came in and applied for our license. And in Utah, ambulances are a legalized monopoly. You can only have one ambulance company in your town. Huh. So if the fire department did it and you wanted somebody to transport, you could have two that way, but you couldn't have two private companies in the same town.
Okay.
That's all throughout Utah. And so Gold Cross applied for our license, and I just couldn't get anybody from the city to listen to us that they were signing our death warrant. And they kept saying, no, the state just wants to do an audit. And I'm like, the state doesn't do an audit. And I tried so hard to meet with the city manager. He wouldn't return my calls. He wouldn't take an appointment. And it was just like getting nowhere. And we after spending tons of money, you can only imagine, on attorneys and a 2-year battle, we just waved the white flag and said, we're done. And I said at that time, I'm going to run for city council. I don't want what happened to us to happen to anybody else ever again. I want an open door policy where whatever somebody has to talk about, they're free to come in and talk about it. Doesn't mean I'll always agree with them, but I've been able to help a lot of people in different things. And that's why I decided to run. Now, my husband and I were trading off going to city council meetings because we wanted, when you're providing the EMS service, you want to feel like you're part of the city because you're working with the fire department, you're working with the police department. So we were going to meetings. So I was well aware of what city council meetings were about, major land use.
Yeah, it's like 60 to 70% of everything.
Or more.
Yeah. Is land use.
Is land use. So I knew what I was getting into, but I also wanted to be able to be somebody that a person could call. And I'm on the radio once a month. I give out my cell number, 632-9116. And I have a lot of phone calls. In fact, as of right now, from January to today's date, I'm well up over 1,400 phone calls and text messages, only city related.
Wow.
And I return, well, there's a few that I would not return, some that just call and scream. Like I've had a guy that is on a rant right now. I think he's obviously got mental health issues, and he'll just say, you know, I'll see you in jail. You need to resign. You need to resign on the Sabbath. It's the holy day. I mean, he just keeps calling and
wow.
I'm not going to return that call.
Yeah.
But other phone calls, yeah, I'm going to return it. And a lady from Canaryville called me the other day, and I didn't know she lived in Canaryville when I returned her call, but I was on the phone with her for an hour. Her story was, it wasn't something I could help her with. It had to do with 5th District Court and a really horrible, nasty divorce she's going through. Mm-hmm. But just to listen, you know, and I told her, I said, if you just need to call and talk to someone, I'm here. She hasn't lived here very long, but I just want to be able to let people know that they have somebody that will be their cheerleader when it's appropriate to be their cheerleader.
Yeah. So, were you born in Southern Utah? Is that?
I wasn't. My mom was.
Okay.
So my mom's maiden name is Staley.
Okay.
So Mayor Staley and I are related. My 3rd great grandfather is his 2nd great grandfather.
Okay.
And they came here in 1861, and with the other 308 families.
Yeah.
And so my mom grew up in Enterprise, and then when she was 15, they moved to Vegas, and that's where she met my dad. Mm-hmm. And so I was born in Las Vegas, but we moved to Arizona with my dad's work for a little bit. And when we were in Arizona, my parents just said, what are we doing here? We are so far away from family. And at that time, you know, to make a long distance phone call was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And my
cheap.
parents didn't have a lot of money or gas to just come here and visit. And remember, the speed limit was 55 miles an hour. Yep. It took a long time to come from where we lived to St. George. And so one day I remember I was in 7th grade and my dad showed up at school. And I'm like, what is he doing here? And we were having an assembly, and he said, I wanted to tell you that we put the house up for sale. We're going to move to St. George. And I was really excited that I was going to be coming to be right by family. But of course, I was sad to be leaving some friends. And I'm
7th grade. That's
right. And I'm
definitely
still in contact with some of those friends.
Oh, cool.
That's what's great about social media. But
the one thing that's great.
The one thing.
The one thing.
Exactly. I would totally agree there. The one thing. So they sold the house, did not have a job. We lived on the equity from the house until my dad got a job. He bought a backhoe and started just bidding out some jobs and doing work that way. We found an apartment right next door to my grandparents, right downtown. Nice. My parents are still in the house they bought when I was in 9th grade.
Wow.
They still live in that house. But it was so great to be by family.
Yeah.
Tons of cousins, aunts, uncles, everybody. And so I've lived here since 7th grade. When we moved here, there was probably 10 to 12,000 people. You knew every person that lived here. And I tell people there was one high school, a junior high. There was no middle school then. It was a junior high.
Yep.
East Elementary, West Elementary, and one McDonald's.
And that was it.
That was it.
Well, it's interesting to see the growth and the trajectory of growth. And since you've been here so long, you know, it begs the question, and it's the first question I've been asking most of the candidates is what is the role of that local government in how cities grow and how cities evolve? Like what is the role of government from your perspective?
So government can't control the growth. Local government is to provide basic core services. Mm-hmm. You know, that's public safety, roads, sewer, water. In our case, St. George provides power to some of our residents. I live in St. George, but I'm south of the Virgin River, so I'm on Dixie Power. Mm-hmm. But we provide those kinds of things. As far as growth goes, how do you tell somebody who owns property you can't develop it? Or you just bought a lot, but you can't build on it. So what really drove growth, where I saw just an explosion, was during COVID.
Yeah.
We were growing along at about 3% until COVID hit. And then it was a massive explosion.
When you talk about growth, what data set are you talking about? Growth as in population or growth
as in population?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then COVID just put us on the map.
Yeah.
People were coming here from California and Nevada, renting an Airbnb just to let their kids go to school.
Yeah.
They didn't like being locked down, and we were pretty open.
Yeah.
We weren't in that total lockdown. I still thought the whole rules of 6 feet apart, I thought it was all ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And in hindsight, it was very ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But it put us on the map. People came here, and I talked to so many people who have recently moved here or something, and they didn't know where St. George was. They were going to go look someplace else. They were going to go to Mesquite, or they were going to go here or there. And then they came to St. George, and they said they just felt something different about it.
Yeah.
And I always tell them that's the Dixie spirit you're feeling. I know that's, some people would disagree on that term, but it is.
Yeah.
I think it reflects.
I haven't met very many people that disagree with that, unless they're just from out of the area and haven't been here long enough to kind of understand what it means. But
I've only heard one story, and do you have time for this story? It's
Probably.
Insane. So I went to get some headshots done at a lady's house, and I've known her for a long, long time. Her family is, originally from here. And she said they had some new neighbors move in down the street, and they live in a really nice neighborhood. And so she took a plate of cookies over. And she said the guy answered the door, and he's like, seriously?
more cookies?
He's like, okay, it feels like an invasion of privacy at this point.
Oh, no.
So many neighbors have come. And she's like, well, we're just a friendly neighborhood. And he said, I don't want your cookies. I'm just going to throw them in the trash.
Oh, man.
And she said, well, I'm just going to leave them with you anyway. Welcome to the neighborhood. She said, just so you know, we all know each other's kids. We know each other's animals.
Yeah.
I have the garage codes to a couple of my neighbors, like when they're gone and want me to check on things. And she said, did they not do their research and know where they were coming? That we're pretty friendly. And I would hate to lose that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost impossible to control. We would hate to lose it. And yeah, how do we not lose it is the $1 million question, right? I don't know if there's an answer to that one. How do you look at leadership, being in the leadership role, being in the mayor role, for the few years? It's like 5 years now this time, right?
Almost five.
Almost 5. What's your perspective on leadership at that municipal level? Like what are the criteria you think it takes to be a leader at the mayoral level for St. George? Well,
for one thing, you need to realize that you're being watched all the time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't go to a restaurant or a grocery store or something that somebody's not going to recognize who I am.
Yeah.
And so you always need to be on your best behavior.
Yeah.
But I also think leadership, in my case, right now we have an amazing executive staff at the city of St. George. We have a great city manager. All of our department heads are doing a phenomenal job. And I do not micromanage. We meet once a week, and as an executive staff, and I'm there, and they'll bring up maybe an issue in their department or something that's coming up, something we need to know about. But they're the experts. I'm not an engineer. I'm not an expert in water. I don't know those things. I rely on those people to tell me. Mm-hmm. And so for me, leadership is being somebody that they're comfortable to come to, that they know if there's an issue going on, let's say it's an employee issue, that it's going to stay in that room. It's not going to leave that room. And that if I have an issue with something going on, I can go to them and we can have a very heart-to-heart conversation and say, I think things could be better here. But I'm not a micromanager. Mm-hmm. I think that's a good leadership style to have.
Yeah.
Especially when you're working in our form of government where you're considered a weak mayor. You're not a full-time mayor.
Yeah. Help unpack that for me a little bit.
A weak mayor.
A weak mayor.
I know it's a
full-time.
terrible term, huh?
Yeah, full-time versus part-time. I was actually having this debate is what defines full-time versus part-time? Is you get paid based off hours or the requirements of the job? Like what would be the difference?
So Provo has a full-time mayor.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mayor Kafusi, I mean, it is probably more than a 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, because there's a lot of things you're invited to after hours that you go to. But she's running the city. The mayor appoints the department heads,
Mm-hmm.
but it has to be, the council has to affirm those
Mm-hmm.
positions. So you have to have 3 council members. I could say, I want a new water director.
Okay.
And this is who I want. But that doesn't mean I'm going to get that person. The council has to, 3 of them at least have to agree to that. But with Mayor Kafusi, she's running the city. She has people around her that obviously are the experts in different things, but she's the one in there running the city, not a city manager form of government.
So then she has the authority to appoint those on her own without city council there?
I'm not sure how that works with the full-time mayor. I like the government we have. I like that we have a city manager running the day-to-day operations. John and I stay in constant contact all the time. Even if he's on vacation or whatever, if something arises, we're on the phone discussing it. And he does a really great job.
Yeah. And so it's going back to, I guess it's kind of even that bureaucratic operations versus solely elected operations where, the accountability falls on the elected office.
Absolutely.
But the heavy lifting is done by the full-time staff members and things like that are there. Okay, that makes sense. Well, so this leads me to another question. Within that leadership, do you believe leadership requires absolute consistency, so like unwavering resolve in decision making, or is pragmatism, flexibility more important? How do you view that leadership?
Well, I think you have to have some flexibility, especially how things change. In a growing city like St. George, there was years and years and years where it was this way or no way. And I don't think that's how it needs to be done anymore. I think you have to listen to all sides, especially being the mayor. We're nonpartisan. The mayor and the council are nonpartisan positions. I just can't be out there listening to people that I totally agree with on the political aisle. I need to be listening to everybody. And sometimes somebody may come up with a really good idea that I think we should maybe look at implementing in the city. And so I do think you can change with your leadership style.
Yeah. It doesn't require just saying it's my way or the highway.
No.
That kind of a perspective.
No. And we had a bumpy start and I'll be the first to admit, Michelle Tanner and I were like oil and water, when she came on, and we've both learned a lot.
Yeah.
And we get along really great right now.
Yeah.
And it's made such a huge difference to her, to me, to city staff. They can see that we sat down and talked about all of the things that we do agree on. We agree on more than we disagree.
Right.
And yet it's great to have voices that are different from yours and everybody that has a different opinion. And so I could call her up on the phone now and say, tell me what you think about this, because somebody brought this to my attention and I want to get the council's opinion. So tell me what your opinion is. And she could have a different opinion from 2 other council members. But I just think that I will take sole responsibility for just being really closed off at first, because it was just, she knew how to push the right buttons. And I was wanting to push back instead of just saying, let her be who she is and I'll be who I am. And I would say we have a really great relationship now.
Yeah. Thinking of that dynamic, right? Especially during COVID, being a mayor during COVID, having to make decisions that you're doing the best you can with the information that you have. Do you look back at that and think about that leadership style and how it's evolved? Is there any moments where you're like, man, I probably handled that wrong or could have changed that? Had there been moments like that?
There's always those, but I actually, by the time I was appointed mayor, COVID, the mask rules were gone, the 6-foot rules were gone. I didn't have to deal with that.
Oh, okay.
So thank goodness. Because I probably would have pushed back harder than Mayor Pike did on some of the things that the health department was doing. But, there's always, people can always improve. Yeah. Everybody can.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are. And yeah, I look back and think I would have done that different.
Yeah.
Or I would have said that differently.
Yeah. Those moments, they happen for everybody, I think.
Yeah.
What's your view now that you've, especially since you've been there, I think this is maybe what was your view before and what's your view now of the relationship between the local government, the state government, and the federal government? I think like most people that you could sit in the stands watching the game, but you get into the game and you realize it's not as simple as yelling at the TV to, don't steal second with 2 outs, right? Like there's some things that like seems obvious for everybody else, but when you're in the game, it's different. What is your view of that relationship between the local government, state, and federal government?
So you have to keep those relationships. Especially, for example, we are getting ready to build an airport tower. We're going to be breaking ground on it next month. It's desperately needed for our airport. And so we needed to have great relationships with the FAA and our state legislature to help fund that airport tower. But the government closest to the people matters the most. I can't just say, hey, I need to talk to Trump. Get Trump on the phone. I probably couldn't get Senator Lee on the phone. I could get Senator Curtis on the phone. He's been really great. But I think the reason it's different with him, he started as a mayor.
Yeah.
He gets it. Same with Representative Malloy. She's really responsive to the needs of St. George. And it's important to have a good relationship with our local legislators. We try and meet with them before the session starts in January and let them know what some of our needs are and what we're going to be up there like lobbying for and what they could help us with. And sometimes they'll just say, we're not going to be able to help you with that. But it's important to have that open line of communication.
Yeah. So has it changed? Did you realize that the importance of that relationship before, or is it something that's just really obvious once you're
I
sitting
knew
there?
it was important, but I didn't know how involved I would have to be in the process.
Yeah. Just keeping up with it. There's so much going on.
There is so much going on. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, it's been about 3 weeks ago, I got a call from the governor's office and asking me to be on an appellate, there's a really long word for it, but basically for 4 years, you're appointed to that position to choose new judges. And right now we have a Utah Supreme Court judge that's retiring in December.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
And so Governor Cox, I'm like, I'm not an attorney. And he said, that's why we want you on there, is we want somebody with a set of different eyes and, know that the judge is going to be honest and follow the Constitution, trustworthy, all of these things. And so I'll be in Salt Lake 2 full days in August at different times, one day going over all the applications to narrow them down, and then the other day doing interviews. And that's going to be an important position that I'm going to be a part of. But because of my relationship with state leaders, Governor Cox thought about me and said, we need to have Mayor Randall on that committee.
So yeah, it gives an opportunity to have a greater voice throughout the state at that local level.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And now it used to be that, they always called it the Pace and Dixie line. They forgot about us down here. Well, we're growing so much. And we're getting a lot of different awards for, one of the best cities to start a new business or all kinds of different acknowledgments. And they're acknowledging us that there's a lot going on down here and we need to be really involved in Southern Utah.
Well, and as the complexity of the city goes, I've said this other times as well, St. George doesn't operate like a normal city in Utah. There's a lot of stuff going on that St. George handles that most cities don't need to be bothered with, right? Or have the responsibility to do. And so St. George, number 4 largest city in the state by population, and then it controls the southern border and what comes in and that development being in the sun. There's so much vacationing going on and all these things. It's really grown to be a powerful center for the state economically. Sitla, I didn't know how powerful. Majority of Sitla's revenue comes from the developments that happen in southern Utah.
Oh,
vast majority.
A vast majority, and I'll talk to. I can't even tell you how many mayors or even legislators that live in Salt Lake that have second homes here.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of them.
They're all like, as soon as we retire, that's where we're staying for good.
Makes sense. That's why we love it.
Yep.
Okay. What role does the community input play in your decision-making process, and how do you weigh the community's input versus your own judgment? Walk me through kind of how that process has worked out for you.
Being on the city council and having a vote, it can really play in your mind, especially when you get, well, even as mayor, I'll get emails. If you don't vote this way, this will be your last time ever serving, you know?
Yep.
But you also have to look at, okay, is the zoning right?
Mm-hmm.
Does it meet all code?
Mm-hmm.
Personal property rights.
Mm-hmm.
We have a case in point in Sun River. They were so angry another hotel was going down there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually 2 now. So they're going to end up with 3 right now.
Yeah.
And
it is on I-15.
It's on I-15, but still, Robert, the emails we got.
I can imagine.
I mean, and some of them were really angry and not so kind.
Yeah.
But my whole thing is, if you want something different there, then buy the property.
Yeah.
That's the only way you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does get into your mind, like, these people going to hate us if we pass this.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to also think about the property developer and his right too.
Mm-hmm.
He's purchased that property. He's going to put the money into it with impact fees, the infrastructure, everything else, and build a really nice hotel. It's not going to be like a Motel 6 that's going to attract all the crime and everything else that they claim.
No offense to Motel 6 owners out there.
No. But these are more high-end hotels.
Yeah.
And they are hotels, not motels. And I think that you just have to really look at it that way.
Yeah. It's a tough, the city development and making a plan. You do a general plan. You say, hey, this is the types of businesses roughly within the zoning code is going to go in these areas. And, the due diligence when you're buying a piece of property typically surrounds around the house. It doesn't always extend into the greater neighborhood, and seeing new development into the neighborhood can be tough to swallow. But
and some people, like even with City View, when City View was built, they were we've ruined the downtown.
Which is crazy. It's like,
that's my opinion as well.
Yeah.
But there's other people that, no, they want the downtown of the 60s, 70s, 80s of St. George. Dick's Cafe with the horse outside. Yes, I love Dick's Cafe. I love to see that horse outside.
Yeah, spring break where the boulevard was just packed with cars and thousands of kids from all over the state. Yeah, those were the days.
Those were the days. But I think City View has brought some synergy downtown.
Yeah. It's an interesting anchor, and development and redevelopment happens sometimes organically and sometimes by the impact of the local governments, which kind of leads me to this next question. What is the role of economic growth in a community's well-being, and thinking what's the local government's role in impacting that economic growth, and then that economic growth, how does it rate in the well-being of the community from quality of life and, cultural preservation? Like, how do you weigh that out? What do you think the government's role is? And then what's the level of importance of that economic growth is to some of these other things?
Well, based on the way our budget is, economic growth is huge. Our budget relies heavily on sales tax.
Mm-hmm.
So when we got the second Costco in St. George, we were elated because Costco is one of the highest sales tax generators in the city.
Yeah. Of any business almost. You look at a
Yes.
lot of different businesses, and that one's going to be up there.
That's going to be up there. But, we can't, it's against the law to offer any tax incentives at all for them to come in. That's against state code. So you can maybe help with some infrastructure if you really have a business that you want here bad enough, or we have a great economic development director right now, Chad Thomas.
Go back to the episode, Chad Thomas.
Chad has been on
came
here.
on.
And
David Cordero, they both did.
Yeah,
it was an interesting episode.
Chad's
hilarious, by the way. He's super funny.
He is so funny. He's got that dry sense of humor.
He
too.
does. He
He just cracks me up. But he's really great at his job, and in trying to attract people to sell them on our area.
Yeah,
that it's a great place to do business. That people here love to go out to eat. They want places to recreate. We spend a lot of money in grocery stores. And so he's out there selling the area to some businesses that people are, when are we getting to Trader Joe's? When are we getting a Cheesecake Factory? When are, those kind of things. But it's really important because it is a huge chunk of being able to run the city. You have to have a really great sales tax base to run the city that we do. Yeah,
thinking of, the operating expense of providing services to the community, whether it's, public safety, parks and recreation, general utilities, those types of things. I guess utilities is a little bit separate, but just the typical operating fund. How would that look different? Like if it was redesigned, this is more appealing to those that are like, we're tired of the growth. How do we slow the growth, or how could we operate in a world where we wouldn't have to just keep building, to keep that machine going? If we're so reliant on the sales tax, what's the other option?
There is none. The other option would be to raise property taxes a lot. People don't realize that. So St. George hasn't raised property taxes since 1987.
Mm-hmm.
I had my second baby in 1987.
I was born in 1987.
38.
Yep.
And what we collect in property taxes a year is just a titch over. It's $13.3 million. Imagine running a city on that.
Yeah.
We can't.
Mm-hmm.
We can't run one department on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we just, hey, tourists, come on in, come drop your money, stay at the hotels, eat, spend your money at our stores, and go home.
Yeah. And it's really the only way. We've set ourselves on a trajectory, whether good or bad. Because I think on the flip side, if we hadn't have grown the tourist community like we have, which I think the local government and the local community, they invested in that, right? They invested in making that a part of their economic driver.
Red Hills Golf Course was the first thing that they did to make people stop in St. George. Before then, St. George was just a pass through.
Yeah.
Nobody stopped. And then somebody from Palm Springs said, you guys could have a heck of a golf course right here. And Red Hills, it's far
still one of the best ones in the area.
It is. It's so pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the best golf course I think we have. And it made people stop and spend some money there and maybe stay a night or two. And that started it all.
So thinking about how do you, if we were to fast forward, where do you feel like there's a place for the local government to help diversify that economy out, right? So rather, we have construction and tourism are the main economic drivers. Do you see a world where we have to start transitioning out of relying on those two, or do you think that because what I see is kind of like we're turning into a little bit of a park city at a certain point, right?
And we do not want to be a park city. We don't want to price people out of here where only the wealthy can live. But I think you have to diversify your economy. I wasn't on the council when the Great Recession hit, thank goodness, and all of the very, very hard decisions had to be made because we were so tied to development. And I think Tech Ridge is going to be a great thing. You've got other businesses that we've got an Amazon out in the industrial park. You have a lot of businesses out in the industrial park that aren't tied to development, that are just jobs that pay good money and that allow people to be able to afford to live here. And Tech Ridge, we've, been so invested in that because we want tech jobs. Tech jobs are high-paying jobs. Tech is the future, and we would love to be a tech community, hub like Lehigh is, but nicer.
Yeah, nicer. Lehigh's nice in some ways.
Lehigh's nice. I just don't know why. It's just you drive through there and I don't know. It's no rhyme or reason, really.
It's very interesting to see how that city developed. I think it got it snowballed, and I think there was a momentum there. There was no stopping it. Once it started, it just started snowballing. And I don't know if we definitely want to take that same trajectory, but how do we take the successes of Lehigh and mix it with maintaining quality of life and our keeping our cultural heritage here? How do we mix those two things?
I also think it's really a big deal with Kevin Costner wanting to build a studio here.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I was talking to a lady when he was filming the second Horizon movie. I was on set one day, and I was talking to a lady from the film industry, and Park City has a studio, and she said for the Food Network she does the Christmas and Halloween food war thing. And she said it takes them 3 weeks to film, and they drop $450,000 into Park City in hotels and food alone, and then they leave.
Wow.
But you think about car commercials, how much money they bring in, and people don't stay. They come and film the commercial and they leave. Or some YouTube series or any other kind of series where people are just looking for a place to film, and then they want to go back home to California or wherever they came from.
Yeah, it can be another little ace in the hole of not necessarily providing constant, economic benefit, but it's just this other string into the revenue source, into the community on a regular basis, which is really interesting. Yeah, that's another thing. I keep forgetting about that one too. There's a lot of them going on. I think I'm going to wrap with this one because I think we covered most of the main questions, and then anything that you also want to talk about. But I am curious your thoughts. You're coming on. This would be a second full term. What's your perspective on term limits? Are you for them? Are you against them? You see roles, places where they are beneficial and not? What's your thoughts around them?
It's crazy that the only person that has term limits is the president of the United States.
Isn't that so weird?
It is. It is just strange to me.
Yeah.
And if I was in charge of the whole world, of the U.S., the House of Representatives wouldn't have to run every 2 years.
Yeah.
To me, that just is like, you would always have to campaign. If I had to campaign every 2 years, I would go and just, I don't know, do something because campaigning is stressful.
And they still don't quit though.
No,
they still keep doing it.
They have to do it all the time, and it would just be awful. It would be awful. But I think term limits are basically the people decide on your term. I mean, if they want you to stay, they're going to keep voting for you. If they don't, you're done. But I've told everybody I would love to do one more term as mayor and then let somebody else have a chance to do it because it's very stressful. I didn't realize how much more time the mayor's job is than the city council. I was oblivious to that. And the only reason that Mayor Park was able to do it is because he worked for Select Health and they gave him the time to do it and have that job as well. I couldn't have a full-time job right now and do this job.
Yeah.
It would be impossible. I could maybe get a part-time job and work, that had flexible hours.
Like Smith's or something.
Work a bag of groceries, something.
That'd be the coolest mayor ever. You just go get a part-time job at Smith's.
Or a Walmart greeter.
You'd never get anything done.
You're right. The first person that comes in, you're an hour. Yeah. But I think long gone are the days of a mayor being a mayor for 20 years, like Mayor Dan. I do. I think people like to see change, and I feel like one term you've gotten your feet wet. I'd love to see some projects completed and have another term. And then I think after that, it's like, okay, by that time I will have been in city government 16 years, 2 on the city council, 2 as mayor. And I think that's plenty of time.
Yeah. So would you be in favor, like if the community was like, hey, we want to put term limits at the city and mayor seat, we want to put it up for a vote. Would you be open to having it up for a vote?
I wouldn't be opposed. I don't know if I would personally vote for it, but if that's something the community wanted to do, then it's just like with the geo bond or the RAP tax or anything like that. Let the people decide what they want.
Yeah. I think it's worth a survey question. It's like, what are your thoughts?
What are your thoughts?
Three terms. Like,
and
just
I'm
three.
not even sure how that works. If it has to be, a referendum where you go out, you get enough signatures to put it on a ballot. I don't even know how that works.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Because nobody's ever talked about it.
I think Nanette in Hurricane, they talked about doing it. They could do it at the legislative level, but then the legislative level could undo it, where if it was a referendum, the legislative level couldn't undo it. But then I was thinking at the state level that it does, because we have referendum in the Utah Constitution. However, the legislature can modify it. Where in California, this is a reason why they're stuck in a whole bunch of crap.
Oh, right.
Because you have these referendums, and then the legislature has to stick with that. They can't overrule that rule that has been put into place by the people. So like Prop 13, which was like the freezing of the property taxes, where you can't move it so much over time, and retroactive to the 70s. It was like 1979 or something like that. So it ended up impacting supply chain, which is a big reason why the value of houses went up so quickly, because nobody was selling their houses, and so only there was limited demand, and it just caused all these second and third order consequences that they can't even fix now if they wanted to. It's crazy.
I think Utahns are smarter than some of our friends in California. I'm not saying everyone's dumb in California. We have had amazing people move here from California that I adore, but I'm not sure I could see somebody being in Congress like a Nancy Pelosi or Maxine Waters or what's his name? Schiff. What's his first name?
Adam Schiff.
Adam Schiff. I don't know if Utah would put up with that.
Yeah. Well, and just that longevity, right? And I think certain personalities, they'll get into the spot and they have that personality type. Like, I don't put it past Utah to see Mike Lee as a senator for as many elections as he potentially might want to run, and I could be wrong about that. There could be a shift in perspective, depending on how he
this last bill that he tried to propose, I've never seen people on the left and the right come together so fast.
Yeah. I mean, I think that could have been rethought out. I wish he would have come on the podcast and just chatted with me before he rolled that out. I think we could have ironed out some marketing strategies that could have done better.
There was so much disinformation on that.
It was very hard to find exactly what it was, and I don't think the initial angle that got just like caught fire was this affordable housing being part of it, and that just didn't make sense with like what was being said and what was proposed in these maps. So, but at the same time, he's elected. He has 6 years to where the news headlines, they move quickly. So it's easy to forget some things later on. And so, which I think is why it's such a benefit to incumbents in rerunning, and why they win at such a high percentage of the time, is because we're short-sighted. Yeah, they do. 80%. Incomes win 80% of the time.
Can you write that down?
They do. So if I was a betting person, right,
Okay.
and you're an incumbent, you have the greatest chance of winning because of name recognition, and as long as the community that voted you in the first time, if you didn't disenfranchise that community probably is still going to coalesce around you as an individual. So once you win, you have this body of electorate that, as long as you don't erode their trust in you, you end up holding on to that. It's easier to hold on to it, which is why, in my perspective, having some kind of term limit strategy, it doesn't have to be just 2 terms, or it doesn't have to be, this rigid, it only can be this way. I think there's a lot of different ways that we could go around what do term limits look like and reorganize it. But I also think it's really important at the state and federal level to reassess what is that second or third order consequence of having lifetime politicians in there. And I think it comes down to lobbying money and things like that. But my opinion is only one man. But I'm curious about what your thoughts are. And it's been interesting to ask that question to everybody because there's a wide viewpoint on it.
Yeah.
And I can understand being against it or for it. It's kind of, you're just weighing out what are the pros and cons.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against it being on a ballot. I just think that I know when I'm tired of somebody, I just don't vote for them. I vote for somebody else.
Yeah.
But
it's a good thought.
That's how.
What else do we want to leave it? Do you want to correct the record over here?
Just what
great. Did I say wrong? Just kidding.
You didn't say anything wrong. I know so many people. Social media again. Mm-hmm. Isn't it fun?
It's fun.
Isn't it fun?
I hate it.
I do too.
I hate it.
If I wasn't mayor, I would delete social media in a heartbeat. But we're issuing building permits right and left, and we're really not. I mean, yeah, they see a lot of building going on, but when I look at our permits, those permits aren't just for a new house or a new business. Those are permits for solar on your house. Those are permits if you want to do an addition on your house. Those are permits if you're going to put a second garage on your house. Mm-hmm. All of that is in those building permit numbers. So when you look at that and you say 2,500 last year, that doesn't mean 2,500 new homes. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't mean that. And as far as water goes, that's the one thing with the federal government that you just want to pull your hair out is the bureaucracy and the environmentalists that make you jump through all kinds of hoops. But with Graveyard Wash, we are hoping to have that permitted by the end of the year. Mm-hmm. Right now, so they do an assessment. We have to do an assessment. We send our assessment in. They decide if they're going to approve that assessment or not, or if they're going to make us do some more mitigation. And then we're hoping all of our mitigation's done and that we can get Graveyard Wash, start building on it by the first of the year. Because if people knew, I wish everybody in the county that is on our reuse system, which includes Ivan, Santa Clara, Washington, and St. George, would go down to the reuse facility treatment plant one day. And if you go down in the winter, you will see this huge 36, 48-inch pipe. I can't remember what it is. Just shooting out water that's cleaner than the Virgin River, going straight down in the Virgin River to Lake Mead, because we have nowhere to capture it.
Yeah.
And so one place that we will capture it is Graveyard Wash, and we need Warner Valley Reservoir desperately. Yeah. 2 years ago, with the amount of snow we had, we would have filled up Warner Valley with just the runoff.
Wow.
And it's going to be bigger than Sand Hollow.
Yeah.
But now look at the dismal year we've had. So there's ebbs and flow all the time, and people are like, we don't have the water, don't let people in. That's been the narrative since the first people got here.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a challenging conversation. So just the correction on that Graveyard Wash, we're hopefully we can get the final stamp of approval by the end of the year, and then they probably just start.
We're hoping in 90 days they will give us the final stamp of approval,
and then we could just start running on it.
Yep.
And then that will help us bridge the gap between that and the Warner Valley Reservoir, which would get us water up to another 50,000 probably houses.
It would just be nice to have all these storage facilities, because when our water director, Scott Taylor, his family moved here in 1961. And Scott said his dad told him in 1962 nobody could water outdoors. They had such a dismal dry year, so no outdoor watering. And that was before Gunlock was even built. So you didn't even have one reservoir. Gunlock was built in the 70s. Then again in 76 or 77, it was again no outdoor watering because the drought was so bad.
Wow.
So nobody could water outdoors. Well, then when Ron Thompson was running the Water Conservancy District, I'm wanting to build Quail Creek Reservoir, people were freaking out. They're like, why do we need that? It's too expensive. There were 100 registered boats in the whole entire county. They're like, we do not need Quail Creek. Aren't we glad that there was that forethought always? Like, we're going to need that for water storage.
Yep.
And then came Sand Hollow, and now we need Warner Valley. And so we need people to always be thinking to the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to leave this place better than I found it. I have 4 children, 3 of them live here, and all of my grandkids live here. Yeah. And I would love for them to be able to stay.
And have water outside. And trees.
Have trees and water and, run through the sprinkler occasionally. Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap here. Where can people find more information about you?
So,
you got a website?
My website is michelerandall.com. And remember, it's Michele with 1 L, Michele. My parents tried to be unique, but now nobody spells it right. So, Michele.
Classic Utah name.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
michelerandall.com.
2 L's for Randall.
2 L's in Randall. Yes.
2 L's in Randall, 1 L in Michele.
Yes. And my number is also listed on there, 435-632-9116. They can call me with more information as well. And I am happy to hear from people.
Sweet. And then you can go to votestg.com and find all the candidates all in one spot. You can weigh Michele Randall's opinion versus the other candidates that are running for city council and the mayors, and they have survey questions. And for all the cities, well, the top 5 cities in Washington County, sorry, Laverca and Tocqueville, you didn't make the cut. So in Ivan, Santa Clara, St. George, Washington, and Hurricane, all the candidates are listed there with surveys. Not all of them filled it out yet, but I'm sure everybody will get to it before the election. It's coming up. Primaries are coming up. Your ballots will be here end of July.
Ballots are going to be mailed out July 22nd. And the primary is August 12th.
August 12th.
And please, people, don't mail your ballots in.
Go drop them off.
Go drop them off.
Don't send them to Vegas first and then...
No, just go down and drop them off at any of the county libraries or at the county building.
Yeah, absolutely. Good reminder. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. We'll see you out there.
Thanks, Robert.
Thanks for listening in. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. Make sure you're following us on all the social media websites. We love your support. We love the dialogue. We want to continue that going.
Find us at realestate435.com. We'd love to help you find a house here in town or help you get wherever you're going.